Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Eva Oberla. I'm an associate professor with the Human Early Learning Partnership at UBC, and I'm the principal investigator of the MDI project at HELP. I would like to open this webinar by acknowledging that HELP's work at UBC takes place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And the Musqueam Nation been the rightful caretakers of this land for millennia, stewarding its resources and nurturing its landscapes. This is really important for us to mention because we at HELP express our gratitude for the opportunity to live, work, and learn on this land. And we work with communities and also with Indigenous communities because we have a strong commitment to supporting the thriving and well-being of all children in BC. If you would like to share with us where you're joining from today, please feel free to use the chat for that. Here's an overview of what we hope to cover today. First, I'll do a quick refresher on the MDI, and then the implementation team is going to step in, and they will be sharing strategies for launching the MDI in your school districts. We will be looking at a timeline to prepare for the MDI data collection, which is coming up soon. And in the end, we will have an opportunity to go really through a few more detailed steps of the MDI in administration in your school district. We will also be able to look at some MDI resources, and most of all, and I think that's the most exciting part, I think, talk a little bit about the new MDI dashboard, which is a way to look at data from the MDI. I will have to step out after the first half of the webinar, but if you have questions for me, please contact me. My email is on my email address, and contact is on the HELP website. I'm always happy to hear from schools and school district administrators and connect through the project. Today, we focus on the MDI, but those districts who have been with HELP for a while and have participated in multiple projects, you will know that the MDI is part of a larger monitoring system. The monitoring system spans from early childhood to adolescence, and really the goal of the monitoring system is to capture the experiences, the developmental health, and the well-being through the perspective of children, youth, parents, and educators. So while the TDI and the CHECK are parent report tools, the EDI is a teacher report tool, and then MDI and YDI is where we actually have a chance to talk to the children and youth themselves. So what is the MDI? The MDI is, just in short, it's a self-report survey for children in grades 4 to 8. Well, why grades 4 to 8? This is a transitional period in their development, and we know that this is a time when there is increased risk in development, but it's also a time of increased opportunity. So there's this window of opportunity when we can make a difference if we can understand the resources and the assets that can support positive development during that time. Middle childhood and early adolescence are particularly important for early prevention of problems, for example, early prevention of mental health problems. And taking a strength-based perspective, it is an ideal time for promoting children's well-being to establish trajectories of thriving. Well, some of you might be asking, why are we surveying children directly rather than asking the parents or teachers? Well, self-report surveys with youth provide us an opportunity to give children a voice. This is really important, that we have a chance to directly ask and talk to children and youth themselves, because that, for us, is a way to also signal to them that what you think, what you feel, and what you say really matters to us, and we will incorporate it into our planning and into our reflections of how to put interventions and promotive strategies in schools and school districts into place. There's research has actually shown that children as young as grade 4 can provide reliable and valid responses to surveys. And that's why we have, as a youngest age group that we include in the MDI, we include grade 4 children up to grade 8. In its way to really focus on children's voices, the MDI is quite unique, I would say. A lot of the surveys for these middle childhood age groups continue to survey parents and teachers to get input on children. But if we talk to youth themselves and children themselves, it really helps them to feel empowered. And when they're empowered, when they're feeling confident, when they're sharing with us their thoughts and perspectives, and they know that they're being heard and taken seriously, this is a really positive way of taking into account children's perspectives. The self-reported nature of the MDI was also originally chosen because it upholds the Article 12 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. So This has been a really intentional strategy for collecting data in this project. The MDI is a population-based survey. This is really important to note that it is not a diagnostic tool. It's not an individual tool. It tells us about groups, aggregated groups of children, children in neighborhoods, children in school districts, in schools, and broader geographic regions. So that way, it really allows us to understand and to monitor population trends in childhood well-being. We never use the MDI to evaluate teachers or to evaluate schools or school districts. I would say, the key message of why the MDI is important is because it allows us to understand how children are currently doing socially, emotionally, physically, and to follow trends over time. And also, the part of the MDI project that's really, I think, the biggest parts for schools and school districts is that we report data back. So we provide you with the results from your school and from your school district, and that way provide educators, parents, researchers, and community organizations and policymakers with information that's actionable and that they can use to create supportive environments where children can thrive. We focus on the different contexts in which children grow up, and these contexts really represent the ecology of children's lives. So this includes schools, but also families, neighborhoods, and more as like a time context after school time. So when you think about the structured and unstructured activities some children and youth are taking part of during their after school time, this is a really important aspect for their life for positive youth development. And these after school time activities can include structured activities, for example, participation in sports clubs, learning an instrument, educational activities, but also unstructured activities, for example, reading or screen time, hanging out with friends, playing outdoors, and doing your own arts and craft in an unstructured context. I would say, like, picking out one theme in the MDI that is quite central and that shows up in all of the sections of the MDI is relationships. We know from research on resiliency that the relationships children have, supportive relationships, are central to their healthy development. So the connections with peers, the connections with adults in their lives, at home, at school, in the community, are really an important part of what we measure in the MDI. I think peers in particular is something that many are interested in. That's also why we have multiple measures regarding that. We have friendship intimacy, but also peer belonging. And we also measure children's reports of peer victimization and bullying. That way, we really can understand the way children belong and connect with other peers, or maybe feel like they don't belong so much and maybe have negative experience in their peer relationships. This is quite important, considering that as young children grow older and become youth, adolescents, and grow into young adults, they're more and more expanding their social circle in which the relationships matter. And I think the middle childhood years research has shown is really when the peers are starting to become quite dominant for social well-being of children. This is an overview of the different dimensions we measure with the MDI. I'm not going to be able to go through that in detail, but we have a lot of that information online on the HELP website. There are 5 dimensions: social and emotional development, physical health and well-being, connectedness, school peer experiences, and out of school time. And those in many different ways relate to the BC curriculum. So we do actually have a lot of that information in the MDI Discovery Guide, where you really try to understand how do we connect with what's happening in school? How does the MDI connect to that? I want to show you briefly what are a couple of key data points that you get back when you participate in the MDI with your district. So when reports are coming back to you, one main thing you will be seeing is the well-being index. The well-being index is a composite measure. It's a way for us to summarize children's responses on multiple items that indicate well-being: optimism, self-esteem, happiness, the absence of sadness, and general health are the 5 items we combine to one larger index of well-being. And when children overall respond high and positive on these measures, and taken here, you might be thinking that how does sadness fit into this? So we basically measure sadness, but then we reverse the scores and consider the absence of sadness as an indicator of positive well-being. But when children generally respond in a positive way to well-being items, we consider them being high on well-being and thriving. And when children respond low on to these items, we consider their well-being to be low. And those who fall into a medium well-being range, these are children who will be reporting no negative responses, but also fewer than 4 positive responses. Those are those who are kind of in the neither nor range. They're in a medium well-being range. What you can do as a school is, if you participate more regularly in the MDI, you can, for example, track over time how well-being in your school has been changing over the past few years. You can also see for some schools who participate or school districts who participate 2 years in a row, they can see if there are immediate changes in well-being from one year to another after, for example, implementing some strategies or implementing some interventions. So I think the well-being index is a central index that's that's used quite frequently, both by schools and by school districts. The asset index is a second piece that is quite prominent in our MDI reports. And in the asset index, we really combine assets in 4 different domains. One of them being relationships with adults. So this includes relationships with adults in the school, neighborhood, and at home. Peer relationships includes peer belonging and friendship, intimacy. Then we have out-of-school activities, which are the organized activities children participate in. And participation in organized activities is considered as an asset because it's related to children's well-being outcomes. And healthy nutrition and getting enough sleep. Nutrition includes eating breakfast on a regular basis, meals at home with family, and then the frequency of a good sleep. That these 3 indicators are combined into a nutrition and sleep asset. So what you see in district reports and in school reports is who of the children are, how many of your children are high or low on this asset, or have the asset or don't have the asset. And this is, again, something that districts can track over time. And especially, this has been quite interesting for some school districts to look at in the context of before COVID and during COVID and after COVID, how these experiences have been changing for children. This is an overview of the MDI participation. The MDI was developed by Dr. Kim Schoenert-Reichel in 2009, and it has really grown over the last few years. Last year was our biggest year, where we had more than 42,000 participants in the MDI. Over the years, the pattern has shifted from a grade 4 and grade 7 MDI pattern to more and more districts participating in grade 5 now, and also in grade 8. So this is really something where we listen to schools and school districts to understand what are their needs around what are the years where they need data in, what is most helpful for schools, when do they want to know about their children's well-being, and what are the transitions they want to support children in. And I think especially the grade 5 to 8 pattern is a pattern that reflects also in grade 8, lots of children either having moved to high school or being in the process of moving on to secondary education. Yeah. And we do also have a few provinces outside of BC that participate in the MDI. We have school boards in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Ontario who've also collected MDI data. So that's been really exciting for us to see that there is also a national uptake of the MDI. A lot of these provinces actually use the MDI and territories as a way to survey school climate in their districts. So different provinces have different mandates for what school districts need to be surveying and what data they need to be collecting. So the MDI has been quite useful for several school districts to meet those needs. This is an overview here. We have 34 districts participating this year. Very exciting. And yeah, I want to spend just a couple of minutes before I hand it over to Kim on just reminding you that the MDI is always a project that is being reviewed and revised over time. And we receive feedback from districts, feedback from stakeholders in multiple different sectoral domains. And based on that, we revisit the MDI every year and see how we can make smaller changes to keep the MDI questionnaire also relevant. To reflect children's experiences in society today. What we heard over the last few years over and over again is that the MDI is too long. So we have actually shortened the questionnaire. Overall, if you consider all the items we've taken out and some were added, the grade 7 survey or the grade 6, 7, 8 survey used to be 101 items and is now 79 items, 79 questions. The grade 4 survey used to be 77 questions and it's now 71 questions. So I think making this a little bit shorter I hope has facilitated also the an easier implementation of the survey with children. The surveys are posted on the MDI admin portal. So if you would like to see the questionnaire, please go ahead and you can access that and take a look at the specific items we're asking. We have made a few other changes over the last couple of years. For those of you who were not part of the MDI last year, they may not know that yet. We revised the out of school time section. The out of school time section it used to be asked as a question where we asked whether children do an activity or how many times a week they do an activity between the time frame of 3 and 6 p.m. 3 to 6 or 3 p.m. through dinner time, I think it was framed as. And that was a time frame where traditionally or originally the idea was to really see what do children do during those after school hours that are specific to after school hours, also when lots of children participate, maybe attend a out of school time care program. And we've now also, especially including older children, we've revised this question to reflect any out of school time, because a lot of these questions in the out of school time section focus on participation in sports, music, educational activities, screen time. And we heard from children and also from families that a lot of these activities, like soccer practice or swimming or like practicing an instrument on your own in your own time. A lot of these things actually happen after dinner. And we wanted to make sure we capture these activities in our questions. So now that question is broader and we just generally ask about their participation in specific activities anytime during their out of school time. A few new questions we've added to the questionnaire is one of them is on daily physical activity. This is in alignment with the activity guidelines and recommendations, where we would like to really understand how many kids meet these daily recommendations for being physically active for at least 1 hour a day. And we've also added some questions on climate and environmental concerns and social media usage. That's for grade 6, 7, and 8 only. The reason for adding these items is really to help us understand the experiences that are quite dominant in young children's and youth life in today's society. We also added a question where we asked children how they would describe their racial and ethnic background in the demographic section of the survey. And at this point, this wraps up my introduction. I would have loved to see all of you, but I can't. So I hope we find another opportunity to meet and connect in person sometime. And I'm handing it over to Kim here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eva. And let me just try to. Okay, perfect. So I think everybody can see my slides. Okay, so for this part of the webinar, we'll be looking at tips on how to launch the MDI in your district, as well as your role, what your role as a district lead will look like. Okay, so we have some new district contacts this year. So I'll highlight the pieces that are most relevant for this time of the year and share resources we have to support you with this launch in your schools. And I will go through some of these points in a bit more detail in the next few slides. But just looking at how to prepare to launch the MDI in your schools, very important to encourage your leadership to express their support in the MDI, possibly highlight the MDI in one of your administrators' meetings, show the connections between the MDI and your goals or priority areas in your school districts, explain how the MDI aligns with the personal and social competencies in the curriculum, share examples on how the MDI results have impacted change in your community or maybe in your schools or school districts. And of course, ensure that parents and guardians receive the informed passive consent letter and also announce the MDI possibly in your social media, in your websites, or in your school newsletters. So we always try to bundle our information, and you all should have received what we refer to as the principal package in October, and it includes some supporting resources that we hope you had a chance to distribute to your schools and your principals so that they know that the MDI is taking place in your district or in their schools. So this package also includes a link to an MDI introduction video, which is also a great way to introduce the MDI to your teachers and your principals. And this can also be shared with parents as a resource if they would like to learn more about the MDI. And I'm sure Amanda will be able to provide the link to this video in the chat so that you have it handy in case you want to share it. We also have a core competencies fact sheet, and this shows the alignment of the MDI measures with the personal and social competencies. So if you also would like this is available in our admin portal. Of course, we know it is best when everyone is informed that the MDI is happening in your schools. And to make it easy, we have created a template that you can use either to put in your school newsletter if one is going out soon, or possibly in your school website to inform parents and guardians that the MDI is taking place. But of course, before sharing or before putting it up, please make sure that those two highlighted portions on the template, make sure to put your district's name there and also what specific grades your district is doing this year before sharing it out to your school community. All right, I just want to also take a moment here to really express our thank you and gratitude to each and every one of you for taking on this role in your district. I know that it's always busy and there's always something happening and coming at you, but I hope that you know that we really couldn't do the MDI without your help. And the implementation team, myself, Merritt, and Amanda, were here to as your guide, and we can provide you with ongoing support and resources to ensure smooth administration of the MDI, and of course, later on, the dissemination and action on your results. Okay, so just a quick look on the timeline for district administration for the MDI in your school. So as you can see there, what do we need to do in November, just before winter break and just before we start survey administration in January? So the first thing there, you can put a check mark, district administration training webinar, you're here, great, check. We have also received the student information through MyEd. So once we give you your login link, which is possibly around early next week, you will be able to log in and view your class lists on our data collection system. Also, you would have received an email package from me yesterday. We refer to it as the Survey Administrator Package with the links to all of the resources that we will cover in this webinar. Another point there, of course, in November, maybe later in November and until prior to mid-December, ideally, we want the parent information letters to be sent home if you would like to start your administration on January 15. But of course, if they go out later, the survey date can also be moved. So there's a little bit of flexibility for you there. One thing to remember and a change that we did for starting this year, we have changed the timeline for sending the letters home to your parents from 4 weeks to 2 weeks prior to survey administration. So I will go through this in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. And of course, in January, in terms of the survey administration training, we will provide a training webinar after school on January 11, and the link to the teacher training can be found in the email package that we sent out yesterday. So please encourage, if you have, say, a new principal, or maybe if your district is doing new grades this year, please encourage them to attend if possible. But of course, all of our training webinars, we always make sure that we record this and we'll share the link with you so that you can also share it with them. So survey administration for this year, I mean, for 2023-24 is on January 15 to March 15. So we have an 8-week window there. And really, it is up to you, the district, and also your schools to decide your timeline when you want to administer the MDI, as long as it is within those 8-week window. For those of you joining us from outside of BC, we will be in touch with you regarding your class list upload, possibly around next week. We will also share with you a PDF instruction so that you know what to do and the steps in order for us to get your student information into the system. Okay, so the MDI uses informed passive consent, which means parents are asked to withdraw their child if they don't want their child to participate. A part of the survey admin package that you would have received yesterday, there was a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU attached to it, which we required that you sign, and you share a signed copy with us. And this MOU outlines the informed passive consent information that we need. So this consent requires due diligence on both our parts, HELP and also the school district, to ensure that, one, parents and guardians receive appropriate communications regarding the MDI project, that they understand the passive consent process and the withdrawal process, and number two, so that any questions and concerns from parents and guardians are addressed appropriately. So the school district will facilitate communications from the schools to the parents with support from our resources provided by HELP. Last year, we have also made our parent letters a little bit shorter and they're more readable. We've also made sure that they're now in PDF and fillable form so that it's easier, and we make sure that the letters that go out are for those particular grades for your district. We also provide the letter in English and 11 other languages. And we want to ensure that parents have adequate time to absorb information. So parents should have had the letter for 2 weeks before survey can take place. As for the student withdrawal process, if a parent does not want their child to participate, they need to notify their teacher or email us directly. Okay, so in that survey administrator package that we sent, there was an MOU that you need to sign, and there was a zip folder attached to it. And within this folder, there are 2 letters in there that we ask that you forward on. So what letters are those? So number 1, there's an administrator letter. So this goes to the principals and the teachers. And number 2, we have the parent or guardian information letters in grade specific, whatever your district or whatever grade your district is doing. And this is to be sent together with the parent info sheet, which summarizes the key aspects of the project. So as I was mentioning a while ago, the change for this year, there's an update. We updated the window in between. So instead of the 4-week window, between when the letters go home and when the survey is administered, this has been shortened to 2 weeks. So this means parents need to have the letters for at least 2 weeks before survey implementation. And this does not include the 2 weeks that the students are away from school during winter break, which is why we recommend that you get your letters out to the parents prior to mid-December. That way, parents have plenty of time to withdraw their child should they wish to do so. So this means, for example, if you would like to start your survey administration on the first day, like January 15, it will be good to get your parent letters prepared now, and then maybe instruct the schools to make sure that they send it out the latest mid-December. A few things also to remember with your parent letters. Please review the highlighted portions in order to personalize your letters better. So we've sent it to you in a fillable PDF format, but you can also put in there your school letter, your school district logo or letterhead. Please put the actual date when the letter is sent home or when the letters are actually going out to the parents. And also, please include your contact information at the end of the letter. So if you are having any issues opening that zip folder, if you're having any issues typing in or putting in your contact information on those PDFs, email us, let us know so that we can help you. The translated letters are in the admin portal. So if you would like to use any of the letters in the different languages, you can always just click on that link in the survey admin package and you'll be able to download all of those letters. Aside from those, we have also created a messaging to accompany the parent letters when you send them home. So I think that was also included in that same admin package as a link so that it's easy for you to just download them if you need them. So to just recap, if, for example, the parents don't want their child to participate in the MDI, they are instructed to let their child's classroom teacher know, or they have our email address so they can contact us directly at help via email. As you notice in the parent letter, it includes a parent withdrawal form at the very last page, which makes it easier for teachers to track parent withdrawals and remove the students from the survey. So we don't need this withdrawal form sent to us. This is really for teachers and principals to hold on to so that they can remove the students when they log in the EMDI system and view their class list in January when they're able to log in. Now, I think I will pause right over there to see if there are any questions about the parent letters. I think we're good. Okay, so moving on. So your go-to place for all of the resources that we've sent, your go-to place if you would like to see all of the letters and all of the other resources is our MDI administration portal. So this is now set up and ready. This is also where you'll find some step-by-step instructions for the district leads and also the survey administrators. And if you're having any issues logging into the admin portal, please let us know and we can make sure that you have access to this. All right, so we received the survey admin package, you've signed the MOU, you have your parent letters prepped and ready to go. So let's just do a quick checklist of what else needs to be done just before winter break. So number one, communicate and make sure that your principals and teachers know that the MDI is happening, and of course, let them know what are the survey dates or the survey window, which is January 15 to March 15. Remind them to book computer labs during this time. So the MDI usually takes 1 to 2 class periods to complete, and we suggest booking around 2 class periods for the younger grades. That's for grades 4 and 5. For older grades like 6, 7, and 8, usually 1 class period is enough, and most students really can complete the survey faster. But of course, it also depends on some students' reading ability. And please also take into account that maybe logging in a whole class to the e-system or the e-MDI system will take approximately maybe 10 to 15 minutes. The survey works on iPads, Chromebooks, netbooks, tablets, also on desktop computers. Lastly, of course, send your parent or guardian letters out to schools to send home before winter break is recommended. Letters can be sent home either via email or hard copy, or preferably both if you can. But of course, please use your school's regular practice for this type of parent and guardian communication, because you know best like how the parents in your community or in your schools usually feel comfortable receiving information from the school. Okay, so one other resource that I will introduce is something that we call the MDI questions brief. And this resource summarizes the question topics on the MDI, including some links to additional resources. We recommend that you distribute this resource to parents in January as a reminder for the upcoming MDI administration. So it serves 2 purposes, really. You give parents an information about the MDI and what kind of questions we ask. We heard from parents that they like to be prepared for the questions that might come home. So this brief describes some of the questions and the rationale in more detail. Also, number 2, if you're sending your letters home before winter break, this is such a good way to remind parents that the MDI is happening in their school. So send this out in January. As you know, if the letters go home before Christmas, we learned that parents usually forget, easy to forget these things, of course, with all of the information coming at them. One other resource that we have is our help website. It's a good resource to direct parents to if they want more information, if they want to see the survey questions, if they have some questions. We have a parent FAQ page, a great resource. We find that not only for parents, but of course for district staff, for principals and teachers. And of course, if you feel like parents have further questions, they can always contact us directly. Now, before I turn it on to Amanda, I wonder if we have any questions on that section.
Hi, this is Merit. Adele, I see that you want to ask us a question, and I think I unmuted you, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. Maybe not. So maybe if you could type your question in the Q&A. Oh, there we go. Okay, then we can take it that.
Oh, hello? Is that it?
Hello.
Oh yeah, that
Hi.
worked.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Greetings from Lutzo, Northwest Territories. I have quite a few kind of questions and a unique situation that other rural schools with small numbers but very big challenges on these 5 topics. Is there any possible way to get paper instead of computer?
Paper survey?
Yeah.
I think I'll
We
have
have
to
very
just
slow
answer.
internet. We have very slow internet and bad attendance. So paper would work better for us. And I know you said, like mentioning set aside class periods. Is it like a one and done, or do I have to kind of chase people absent on that one day, or how are these surveys often done for schools with attendance issues?
Okay, I can answer the first question maybe.
Okay.
You cannot, we do not offer paper anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't have the capacity to we used to many years ago. Now, you know, in terms of Northwest Territories, you have has participated for quite a few years now, and I know it can be an issue with internet. But it usually somehow works. So I think maybe this is a conversation we could take aside to, you know, on maybe after the webinar, or we could connect with you later, Adele, see if there are some ways we can maybe support you in this. Would that be okay?
But on the second question, because I'm certain I won't be the only one with an absent student or 5 on the one day we set aside to do it. Like, is it a one and done survey, or can students do it if they miss that one day?
They can do it when they come back to school. But then you have to,
Okay.
of course, administer it that way, which we realize this may be more work for you, but you can certainly administer it over several days, and students do not have to complete the survey in one setting either. So they could come back and log in again, and the survey would pick up where they finished the day before or 2 days before, or whatever, however you want to administer it, you can plan that.
Okay. That sounds much better. I just wasn't sure. I find it's going a little bit fast, but it's a good amount of knowledge. Thank you.
You can also reach out to us anytime, and we'll try our best to answer. Okay, thank you. Okay, maybe I'll take one more question while I'm on here, Kim.
Yeah.
There's a question here about logging into the EMDI to check the class lists. And yes, that is something that preferably principals will do, because they will, in general, know their class lists. It could also be something that teachers do when they receive their login in January.
Yes.
So we don't really ask that district personnel do this kind of checking. Okay, thanks, Chantal.
Perfect. I think we can turn it to Amanda for the next part.
So now we'll just fast forward to January next year, so 2024. So here's the survey administrator timeline and checklist. It gives a quick overview of what survey administrators really need to know and the steps they need to take in order to administer the survey in classrooms. So this checklist has the basic MDI information on the front page and a timeline and checklist on the back. And this is just a quick peek of what the steps look like to administer the MDI. And we'll go over this in more detail at our webinar in January. Okay, so now we'll go through a broad overview of teacher principal administration, and it's covered in detail in all of our training materials, as well as our next training webinar in January. So please encourage survey administrators to attend training or watch the training video once they log into the MDI system. We also ask that teacher principals tell students the MDI is happening so that they are aware before they sit down to participate in the survey. Next, it's important to review the class lists and add, remove, or withdraw students before administering the MDI. And you will also need to print off the student logins and unlock the survey. And also prep an alternate activity for students who are not participating in the survey. And after administration, follow up with any student help requests that you may get. I will cover this in a little bit more detail in just a bit. So this is added to the regular assent script we ask teachers read aloud to students prior to starting the survey. The cartoon, we want to make it really clear to students that the survey is not a test and they can choose not to answer any questions. The survey is voluntary and their answers are all confidential. So here's what the Help for Student page looks like. You'll see this at the end of the survey. So the MDI asks students some rather personal questions about how they think and feel, what their lives inside and outside of school are like, and about their relationships with peers and adults, including questions about their experiences with victimization and bullying. And so because of this, it's critical to make sure that students know they can speak to a caring adult at school if they're having any problems. Hence, they can press the first blue button if they want to talk to their teacher or principal. And we've also added the kids' help phone and text information. So if a student selects yes, I would like to talk to my teacher or principal, an email is sent directly to the classroom teacher and or principal with the name of the student that requested help. And please follow your school's protocol for following up with students. You don't need to let help know about the outcome of the follow-up. We don't see the student requests unless the email fails. And in those cases, we will follow up with the teacher or principal. And we have heard from participating teachers and principals in the past that these requests for help are an opportunity to hear from a student that they may not have been aware is having a problem. And once the EMDI website is live, you will receive an email with a link to log in or to set up your own password so that you can log into the e-system, so mdi.ubc.ca. And then you will be able to view your schools and class lists. And as a heads up, we might contact some of you over the next couple of weeks for help with any missing student information, teacher and principal emails. And for those participating with grade 8, we want to make sure classes are organized in a manner that makes most sense. So in the past, we worked with principals at the schools to make sure we have the most updated classroom or homeroom information. And we did receive this information earlier this month. But we know sometimes this can change by January and February. And for the districts who are outside of BC, we will be in touch with you regarding uploading student information. So on the EMDI, there are a few level of users. So we at Help will have access to everything so we can help you should you need it. District contacts will get access early next week. Teachers and principals will get access in January. And as a district contact, you can track MDI progress in your schools as well as completion. So once you log in to view your district or school, a pop-up window will appear asking you when you sent the parent letters to schools or home. Please add the date if you know it, but if you don't know the date, the system will not dismiss you and will still let you log in. The reminder will just keep popping up until you fill in the date the letters went home. And as a reminder, we do have a list of Indigenous nations, communities, and languages in Canada to assist MDI administrators in supporting students to answer the Indigenous identity questions on the MDI. So these lists are part of an ongoing collective work towards changing and improving the health and well-being of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children and their families. And through guidance of our Aboriginal Steering Committee, we are developing procedures to support First Nations, Métis, and Inuit regional and territorial governments who require timely access to data in order to plan, manage, and account for investments and outcomes for their children's and families' well-being. We really encourage you to spend some time on Discover MDI. It's a great resource to visit and share in introducing the MDI to your schools and communities, especially if you are new to the MDI or are wanting to work with your recent MDI reports. Okay, and then, so the MDI Essentials page is a great place to start for presentation materials, workshop materials, and quick sheets about MDI measures. So there is content to walk you through the journey of exploring MDI data, sharing data in a meaningful way with your school community, and making change with the MDI. So there are videos, webinar recordings, and stories of how school districts and communities have used MDI to make change. And we are also, of course, available to support you, walking you through this content and engaging with the data. So feel free to reach out. We also use Discover MDI to share learning across school districts and communities. So if you participated in the MDI this past year, you may remember Kate Kerr from SD46 shared how her district worked closely with both educators and students in interpreting MDI data and deciding how to move to action at our webinar in April 2021. And the recording of that webinar is still available on the blog, and we will be sharing copies of the lesson plans and slides used for those who'd like to take on a similar activity. So please let us know through the chat if you would be interested in this resource, and we can send it to you ahead of it being posted on our website. And also big thanks to Kate and her team at SD46, as well as Alex Gist and Gail Markin for sharing this experience in these resources. So prior to the 2022-23 reporting year, the BC Public MDI reports combined school district data with community level data. And these reports were known as the MDI School District and Community Reports, and those included maps and neighborhood profiles. Then in 2023, this year, we launched the MDI Data Dashboard, which is a new reporting tool for exploring MDI data from participating BC school districts from 2018-19 onwards. So this dashboard replaces the maps and neighborhood profile section of the public BC MDI reports, and it allows users to explore data over time at both the district and neighborhood level. Now, currently, the dashboard only features data from the well-being and assets indices and the component measures that make up those indices, with future plans to expand the data offered. And you can find a comprehensive, I'll just add to the chat, an MDI dashboard technical guide that was created just to help users navigate the MDI dashboard. And this is just a quick peek of what the MDI data dashboard looks like. So exciting, it's interactive, and yeah. And now I'll speak a bit about MDI reports. So school reports are privately accessed via the MDI system, and separate reports are produced for each grade that a school in the district participated in, and are available to school district superintendents and the designated MDI school district leads. And then the school district reports will be available on the HELP website in the spring for BC school districts, including all of the results for your district. And for school systems participating outside of BC, the school district reports are available on the MDI system. And results for the school district reports are mapped by where children live. So schools and communities can use shared measures to support the children's well-being. And finally, the MDI companion guide has been developed in an effort to assist users with interpreting and applying their MDI results, and provides information about the MDI's 5 dimensions of children's well-being, as well as detailed information on the MDI questionnaire, response scales, and the scoring methods for each dimension and measure are provided. And we encourage you to read the guide as you review your reports. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So the next webinar will be on January 11th next year, and it will be another opportunity to connect with the MDI implementation team in preparation for MDI administration in schools.
Perfect. I think we can stop there and see if there are any questions in the chat. Did you get any interesting questions, Merit, that might be good to share with?
No, I think we shared, I think I answered most of them. Yeah, unfortunately, the dashboard only has MDI, only has BC data in
BC,
it. And there were a couple of good ones about just sort of how this, the help for student email works. And it really is an automatic email that gets sent to the teacher or the classroom person that we have in our system, as well as the principal.
Mhm.
And if there is a bounce back or we have some wrong email in our system, we get those back. So then we inform you anyways that so-and-so student has requested help, and we ask that you
Yeah.
follow up.
We always monitor if we get those notification, and we make sure we follow up if, for example, we got the wrong email or maybe a principal has changed. We make sure that we let them know that there was a help for student request.
Happy to stay on if there are more questions.
Yeah,
Fire
please
away.
feel free to put it in the chat. Maybe I'll also put our information right here.
Oh, one more question. Great
Mhm.
question. Whether or not, when will the district admin people get access to the survey? And I think we said next week, early next
Yes.
week.
Yep.
We're hoping to have it ready that you will then be able to log in. And that's good because you can see your schools, you can see that we have the correct principal information. And we will probably be in touch if we're missing any other information.
Mhm.
And then we will give school principals and survey administrators, so also teachers, access in January.
Correct. Yes. Welcome, Chantal. All right, so I guess we're here. If there are any questions, we also have our contact information right over there where you can call us, you can email us. The best email to use would be mdi@help.ubc.ca. All three of us have access to this. Or phone call, it's also good. But if there are, I don't think there are any other questions. Just want to thank you for carving out this time in your day to join us today. And this webinar is being recorded, so we'll make sure to share the link with you in the admin portal by next week so that you can share it with your colleagues or if there are any other district leads that you have in your district. So thank you, everyone.